is our discussion group, and our discussion will be about online teaching and learning during COVID-19. Every each member will get 1 minute to answer the questions. Okay, so I'll begin with the first question, and 1 minute starts. What were your thoughts about online learning design and delivery before, during, and after COVID-19? So before COVID, I never came around the idea of learning nor teaching online. That's why I entered the BA here in the University of Guanajuato, because I did not see myself learning online. I didn't want to study at all online. Then during COVID, it was very difficult, from going from face to face to online, because it was such an abrupt event. And then after COVID, it was also challenging, but nowadays I believe we cannot exclude online teaching or learning. I think we can just add it, so we can do face to face and online learning. And that was it for me. Okay, Martha, are you ready to answer the first question?
And yes, I think that it's pretty similar because I was also thinking about teaching online, but I thought that I didn't have like the enough autonomy, or I don't know. I didn't see myself like studying only online 100%. And also I was like taking some classes in the at the university, so maybe for me it was like less difficult because I was just taking some classes, so it was not very difficult. And I think that after the pandemic, I think that we can do this kind of activities. We can mix online and face-to-face activities, and that is good because I think that I used to be at home and doing things um, maybe less stressful. Ah,
Okay. Time. All
yes.
right. And Chewy, your turn.
Yeah. So before COVID, I was a high school student. I still hadn't graduated from high school. The year I went into university to study this career, it was the year COVID hit. So I was before COVID, I was like uneasy, like kind of scared to think of how COVID was going to affect me both academically and personally. Uh, so during COVID, it was I found it I found it quite nice because I'm very introverted. So I love answering participating through a webcam. Um, but how do I say this? It really lacked that face-to-face interaction. No, I actually miss because you get to see like your friend interact, and which is kind of weird for me because oh well, that was quick.
Yes, 1 minute can go by fast. Okay, and let's go with
Yeah.
question number two. What kind of evidence did your teachers request to assess your learning during COVID-19? So the first semester, as a student, I believe that both teachers and ourselves, we were struggling to adapt to an online context. And most of our teachers were still allowing us to, turn in written assignments. So all essays and homeworks that were left, you could turn them in, writing them by hand, taking a picture and sending it to them, or uploading them to, I think it was Google Classroom. Um, so first, we weren't applying yet any other platform. I think in the beginning we were just emailing all our work, especially because a lot of students didn't have access to like computers or a good phone. And that's time. Okay, Martha?
Yes, it was the same. Like I remember that first was like only like essays or journals and sent by email. And then I think they started with more dynamic activities like recording videos, the forum discussions through the platform, and I think that I don't remember now more, but I think that was the and like the activities to in classroom also. Yes, I remember.
Yes, I mean it's been a long time, so it can be kind of difficult to remember. I mean it's not that long ago, but yeah. Okay, and
Yes.
Chewy, what are your thoughts on this one? What kind of
So,
evidence?
a lot of the things we would do during during COVID was initially it was just individual essays, papers, and so on. Then throughout the COVID period, our teachers started like becoming more comfortable with this online class. They started like I guess adapting to the situation and started incorporating more how do you call it, more online tools to help us like somewhat forget about the distance between each other. This included like forums, recording like video recordings, discussions, and so on. So in a way, I feel like our teachers were just like initially they were at that weird stage where they didn't know what to do, so they just tried to keep it traditional, I guess you can call it. And then from there on, as it became more what's the word, comfortable, or like they actually understood.
Yes. Okay, and that was time. The third question, what difficulties did you face when teaching online? Okay, so put the timer. Okay. All right, so at the beginning, it was difficult because I had already been teaching for a couple of years face to face, never on an online context. And when I did start teaching online, fortunately, I started with an all online English language school. So I had some training from my boss, so that was a big advantage. So I didn't struggle that much at the beginning because I had the support, and the school provided like material, and they provided you like with ideas and websites. So at the beginning, this wasn't an issue. I think one of the difficulties was with students keeping their camera on and participating, and internet issues with the connection. Maybe they couldn't read my lips or see my mouth movement, so they could do the correct pronunciation. Okay, and Martha, what difficulties did you face?
Uh, I think that in my case, I didn't have like a lot of experience teaching face to face. So I have like 4 months teaching face to face, and then the pandemic happened, and I didn't have like any kind of train how to say entrenamiento to teach online. So I had to look for my own tools, online tools, websites, and I think that one advantage was like we were taking like a class where we have to design like online classes,
Uh-huh.
so that helped me because I had to design like my own activities for the kids, and I think that another disadvantage was the lack of technological tools because the computers didn't work.
Yeah, I understand. Okay, and Chewy, What difficulties did you face?
So at the time, I wasn't really teaching. I was a student. So as a student, it was very demotivating at times. It felt like I wasn't really learning. I felt like I was just sitting through an online lecture, not really learning anything. Uh, but through that's for theoretical, like very theoretical, and that one some helped me feel like because it was just theory, I just remember the stuff. And we spent like 2 whole semesters through online. So initially, I was very demotivated as it went on. No, my motivation kind of increased instead. Um, and it's very technological errors, which is something big. Since I pretty much missed the class. Um, and I think I'll leave it there because time pretty sure it's gonna run out.
Okay. All right. And let's go with the next one. What ways did you find to cope with online teaching? Okay, so here I think I will give experience from online teaching and learning. So as a teacher, I tried to do very dynamic activities, as Martha mentioned. I tried for my classes to be as student centered as possible, to use as um, to make my classes as authentic as possible as well, because it already was difficult to learn online, and like Therese said, for it to not feel like a lecture, but to really feel like a class that you are engaged and learning. So I tried to make like very motivating presentations, games. I did a lot of conversation activities with my students. And then as a student experience, I think our teachers went through the same process and their classes became more dynamic as well. And that was time. Okay, and Martha, what ways did you cope with online teaching?
It was different. I had two groups. So for one was more difficult because I didn't have like the tools to create a more dynamic class because the computer that I was using with them didn't have like the option of a screen and sharing a screen. So I couldn't do a lot of things. And with the another class, I could like create more activities, and also I think that the parents were more involved with the kids during the class, so that helped me a lot. And also, well, it was like basically creating more dynamic classes, and also as you mentioned, like do the class more student center, like they had. I tried them to participate more.
Mhm. Okay, thank you. And what about you, Chewy? So as you
So
mentioned, you weren't
what's up?
teaching, but you were learning. So from your online learning experience, how did you cope with it?
So as I mentioned, initially it was very demotivating. Like I just didn't really want to be there at times. And handle that emotions, I started taking like a lot of time off, which was somewhat new for me. Specifically because when I was in high school, I was very dedicated to my studies. Sometimes I wouldn't go to like certain events just to continue my studies. And once COVID pretty much hit, I started like just getting away from my studies and focusing on myself. Like sometimes I remember when I was in high school, I would spend these long nights. And during COVID and after COVID, I started like um instead of staying up very late to sleep like at 8 or 9. I wasn't that big on educate on my what's it called it on my student. Uh, what else? So besides that, I also started like, oh, well, that's nice.
Oh, if you want, you can finish that sentence.
So what I was gonna say was that I try to reward myself by like going like having these getaways or having some good food. That's pretty much it.
Okay, thank you for treating yourself. All right, and let's go with our fifth question. Okay, did you encounter any struggles coming back from online classes? Um, yes, I did. And in the beginning, because I had um, I have been accustomed to not spending money on on commuting from my city to Guanajuato City, and so I was in the comfort of my house. If I wanted to eat, I can just go to my fridge, to my kitchen. And then at school, it was very difficult because I can't eat all the time. You have to go out, and so so it was just on that way. But then I did like the idea of having social interaction again, and there was a social presence, uh, which we lacked of a lot during online teaching and learning. Okay, and what about you, Martha?
I think that it's at some point like the same like you, because I was accustomed to my schedule was different. So, for example, on Saturdays I had to get up earlier, and I don't have time to eat, or even like you mentioned, to money. But I think that during the pandemic we have like more time, because we didn't have like some classes, the asynchronous classes, and we had more time. And now we have like to organize more time to do at homeworks and that kind of thing, or at the beginning when we back to the face-to-face classes. And those are the things, the
Thank
more
you.
difficult things for me.
And what about you, Tui?
So coming back from COVID to face classes was a slight struggle, I guess you can call it, mainly because of traveling. I wasn't very, how do I say, I wasn't very experienced in traveling that much. It was literally just from your house to school back pretty much my whole life. So going to a different city was a big change. I had to get used to talking to strangers, which was kind of weird. Besides that, it was also the schedule was insane because I remember when it was online classes, I could just wake up like 5 before the class and be there, and now I actually have to wake up like a few like way earlier. Uh, I remember on Friday I used to be able to wake up like at no, I used to like just get on my computer like at 2:10, and you'd be in class. But now I have to leave home like 9 in the morning to attend class at 3. So it was very different. Um, I think that's pretty much it.
Mhm. Thank you. And our final question: how does lack of autonomy affect online learning? Oh, goodness. Okay, so there we go. I think it's very difficult, in the sense that if you don't have this autonomy, or you won't be able to organize your activities or prioritize um, your deadlines. For example, if you have to turn in an essay by Friday, uh, or and that same day you have to turn in a journal entry, or something, you have to like really see, like, you have to organize yourself, which is the one that will take me more time to do, which is easier. And so you have to set your priorities in order. And I believe if you don't do this, it can be very difficult. I'm saying it from my own experience. And I think that would also make it difficult for teachers when it comes to the end of the semester to assess or evaluate your performance at the end of the year or activity. What do you think, Martha?
And yes, I think that in our Mexican context, where the classes are very centered in the teacher, it's very difficult, as was mentioned in the I think most of the students are used to present what the teacher offered, and they don't look for more information. And I think that is very difficult, or only when we are learning a language that we have to look for more information. And in the online classes, maybe there is not like enough interaction or time to do more dynamic activities to practice the language. And I think it's pretty difficult if we don't have autonomy to to learn. And as you mentioned, the lack of organization, we need to organize our and
Okay, thank you. And Chewy, it's your turn. What is your opinion on this last question?
So I feel like online classes are very autonomous based. It requires it from both the teacher and the students. Mainly the students, I think, because the teacher can provide you with with some help, but it will really depend on you to either grasp that information and look for more, or just completely ignore it and not really care about the class. Um, so the student's perspective, they have to, if they don't understand something, they either have to look online, look for other material to help them. While for teachers, it's really just based on their responsibility, how well they can organize things, the material they can provide their students, different ways they can help the students learn to become autonomous, which is very difficult here in Mexico. Um, what else? So here in Mexico, we don't really know how to be autonomous. Yeah, I feel good with that.
Mhm. So, in conclusion, COVID-19 changed our learning and teaching experience as we never imagined the scenario before. Teachers nor students had experience with an online context. As mentioned in the readings, we had a major digital gap in Mexico, lacking training and tools. But we mostly learned along the process, from classes being similar to a lecture to being more dynamic and using online tools and being student centered. COVID 19 forced us to become technologically competent, to perform online activities, and to expect the unexpected. Despite all the challenges we overcame during COVID 19, we now have online teaching and learning experience that could allow us to have a balance between a cognitive teaching and social presence in both online and face to face contact. And thank you for listening to our discussion.
thank you.